I've been streaming and doing content for a while, and something that I wish happened over this time that I was making content is people being specific about the things they care about politically. And I don't think that's necessarily happening. So I kind of just want to share some thoughts about sort of my journey and kind of how I ended up caring about the things that I care about. And then maybe that can be a spark for some people. What's going on? My name is Joe Lewis. I practice talking on the internet. It's been a while since I've made a video, but hey, here we are. So, when I was in my 20s, I wasn't really a political quote unquote person. I cared about politics, but I was kind of in the same sort of boat that most people are, where I didn't really have an idea of the things that I cared about. So, just like generic things, just like, okay, Republicans bad, slavery existed. Um, just like disaggregated ideas of like things that I thought were important. But something that I learned the more I took a serious effort in wanting to understand more about the world is that there was just things that I didn't care about. And those things that I didn't care about, at first I thought like, oh, like I should be caring about these things and these things are important, but they weren't sort of like groundbreaking in shaping who I was as a person. So the first thing that really got me sort of sparked up was just kind of like my relationship with adoption and my relationship to the adoption system. Because basically what I found when I was sort of like reading through my personal records, because for those of you who don't know, like closed adoptions are really popular in the United States, so it's very hard to get like your own personal information. But once I got access to that, I just found negligence and misconduct that just happened and continued to happen. And then when I sort of, not sort of, when I started just asking around and talking to the very people who were responsible for writing these reports, because these were people that I was still in moderate community with, and just being like, hey, like what happened here? And something that I found out is that not only was my experience non-unique, but it was like the norm of how I was being treated. Um and that I was like, that's not okay at all. And then that's when I started seeing sort of like racialized gaps in terms of that care, racialized gaps in terms of treatment. Um, and that really got me pissed. And I was like, yo, so maybe there's more to adoption than just adopting kids, because that's kind of how I grew up. Like I grew up thinking that like adoption is just a thing that you do it because you love the kids, and then you just roll with it from there. But then I realized like no, like there's more to adoption and there's more to the socialization of kids and young adults than just thinking that love is enough and thinking that like these systems actually are going to care about your child. Because what I found out was that it doesn't give a shit. So um I started being really active in wanting to understand more about adoption, speaking to it, and when I can, because at the time, like things were kind of, my life has always been a little unstable, but it was especially unstable at this time when I decided to go down this rabbit hole. But like going to advocacy groups when I can, like speaking to my experience that other people understood, like just general like basic shit like that. Um, from there, that then branched off into a bunch of different things, like my advocacy into wanting to have people understand about transracial adoption and the challenges that exist within that, then branched out to caring about just race relations from that angle. um so then I started speaking to and trying to understand more of the differences of just like white parenthood, that how parenting is in the United States, And in some other countries, like I dabbles in a little bit of that, but obviously, like other countries have different practices, policies, and procedures, so you can't really like do a one to one of like trying to understand it. But I still did it. But it was basically just like a lot of reading, a lot of a lot of interviews and talking to individual people about their experiences and stuff like that. I did about this for about 3 to 4 years, and this was just on top of like the other things I was doing. So I think like the one thing that I found out was that you're not looking for this miraculous deep dive into um other shit. You're not looking for a miraculous deep dive into 24/7 about a topic. But I think something is a bit more manageable and I think more practical is that you just do a little bit every day. Do what you can, and eventually you're going to come out better. I still read and still do those things. It's just that it's on top of everything else that I do. And what I think the online communities that I found myself in the past 2.5 years, 3 years, maybe even before at this point, is that people kind of imply or suggest that these things that we care about, when you talk to more politically focused people that have like particular lanes, is that like, oh, this is all you think about? And it's like, no, we just do this on top of everything else that we do, and you're just seeing an end result of that concentration. Anarchists, for example, because the internet loves shitting on them, are not eating, sleeping, and breathing anarchism 24/7. It's just like a thing that's in community with the other things that they do. No different than any other insert political ideology that's antagonized online. But I do believe that sometimes when people see the end result of work and the articulation of ideas, they think that like, well, that's just all you do, and this is just like, no, like nobody is the totality of their ideology. Like nobody's wearing their ideology as like this thing. I don't know how to word this thought. But it does come up every once in a while in the online spaces that I find myself in. And something else that I think, and this is the thing that kind of frustrates me and why I started sort of detaching from the online spaces that I found myself in, is that when you do this kind of like active figuring out what you care about and going down your interest lines and then building, I don't know if it's an ideology, but just building a politic around those things, it can be a lonely space, a very very lonely endeavor of like, you're at a year to 2.5 years down to a better understanding of rights and injustice claims, and then you hear people talking about how Israel has the right to defend itself, and then you're just like, that's not how rights work. and and then like you're at this level, like you're at like the third floor where everybody's not even at the door yet, and they're making sort of like door level perspectives and door level takes, and it's frustrating because it's like, I wish that, like, I want to have this conversation about like these things that other people are talking about, but at the same time I just at a different level, I'm at a different level of understanding this issue. So what's going to happen is when you're at that different understanding, like when you speak, you're going to sound completely foreign to whatever they're at that level. And then when you articulate that and just be like, you know what, the levels here are not aligned, so I probably shouldn't engage. We shouldn't engage this conversation. Then people will think like you're holier than thou and shit. When in reality, I think that like as you build a concept of like what you care about, yeah, I think it's okay to say that like you're going to be selective in the people that you talk to, because not every single person I think is going to be able to hang in conversations about the things that you care about. And I think what happens is, and this is the thing that I struggle with personally, is it's tricky where you can either like, because you start like thirsting for engagement and thirsting for wanting to talk about these things, like go past the reading. And thankfully, what I found is that there was a pocket of individuals that really cared about these things that I also cared about, and it's like 5 or 6 others. But these are the people I talk to, and I can have robust conversations about like the things that I politically care about to them, and I can just kiki and laugh on the internet otherwise. Um, and I think that's healthy. I think it's healthy to be like, hey, not every person that you find yourself with needs to be your sort of like political friend or political discourser. I don't know what the right word is for this right now, but yeah, not every single person you need to have like a deep political conversation discussion with. There's a lot of people who want to have that, and they can have that with those particular people who are at their level of understanding of an issue. But I think that when you're looking to build a politic and build an actual like understanding of things that you care about, I think it's understanding that not every single person is going to care about the things you care about, one, and two, not every single person is going to be at the same level of understanding about a topic that you are. And I'm not saying people are end up doing these things and being experts. I'm just saying that, like, if you have, for instance, like that one report, I think it's called the Her report, about basically Biden's competency. I don't fucking want to get into it, but basically it's like if you're days into reading and annotating and understanding the Her report, and then you get like an invite to a panel about the Her report, you should probably just say no because there's going to be a bunch of people who don't read. So it basically becomes this like weird pseudo book club where you're 9 chapters in, and the topic may have been about chapter 1 and nobody read chapter 1. So it's like, do you really want to spend your energy talking about a thing you care about in a room full of people who are not the same level of understanding or even looking to have the same conversation as you are? So I think basically it's like, I think as you build a better politic and build a better understanding about the things you care about, I think you should be more conscious of your time and not spending the energy talking about these things that you care about, to every single person. I think it's a healthy way of going about things personally. Um, anyway, so started with adoption, that segued into sort of just like familiar structures and understanding the social dynamics of parenting. Then obviously race relations were sort of like threaded through all this as we're going through. Um, and then it also tied with my relationship to education, because like the negligence and the social aspect, or the social care, we'll call it kind of broadly, in my development as an individual, also coincided with the negligence and misconduct that was with me as a student in the education system. So I started really caring about education, because I found the same shit. I found that, like, there's a lot of black people who are not getting treated well. And why is that? Like, why is this happening? Like, why is it that these folks are getting neglected in the way that they are? And then it stemmed into, okay, why are we not even feeding kids and all this other stuff? So that I really cared about education. So sort of like the three branches of topics that I really care about for a politic for me. I don't want this video to be over long and repeat myself 5,000 times. Are education, and particularly political education, and the political structures and institutions that exist within education, and the institutions that encapsulate this thing that is what we know as education, adoption, and families. And those are like the three things that I would say are like the things that I care about the most. Um, I don't really openly talk about all these topics and like the understanding that I'm at for it, because it's boring. One, because it's boring. And I want to shift my like streaming, when I do stream, to being things I just want to have fun with and stuff like that. Because that's a whole other thing. but two, also, it's like there's something to be said about where people are at, and yeah, it's just like a whole thing. But these are the three things I care about. And I think for a lot of people, especially the ones I've navigated on in like the online spaces I found myself in, they can't even come up with one thing that they really care about and being able to substantively talk about it. Because it's one thing to say like, hey, I care about, I don't know, access to facilities and schools. That's actually too specific. Like they'll say like, I care about healthcare in America. And it's like, okay, what part? What part? Like what do we? What specific thing within this thing is something that gets you charged up? Um, and I think it's healthy to first off admit that you don't know anything. You don't know what you care about, and two, finding things that you care about. I think that um the American education system and America generally kind of fuels this thing where you are apathetically engaged in everything that you do, and there's no thing that you are really dedicated to. um and there's a bunch of things to be said about algorithms and apps, but like that sort of apathetic engagement just leads to you kind of just being aimless and feckless, and I think very susceptible to things like vote blue no matter who, rhetoric around Democrats being like the be all end all, um, and like, or even just like the other sides of it, like republicanism is actually the way, capitalism is actually the way. Like, I think when you recognize you're apathetically engaged in everything, and you should spend some time to really find a concentration. um I think it's important. I don't know, but how else to word the sentence or word the thought. I think it's important to recognize that you're being socialized from a very early stage of being apathetically engaged with everything, and even and including politics and the politics of your life. Because again, like politics, and for no matter how you want to slice it up, and no level of cope will feed you out of it. But everything is political. Everything is political, and everything is politics. And when you are apathetically engaged in everything, you're apathetically engaged, including to the politics around those things. And recognizing that's happening, and then saying, "Hey, I want to like resist against that, and actually have some specificity, have some concentration in what I care about." I think that's a very important thing, and it's not easy, but I think it's a road travel. But I think the first step is understanding that, hey, this apathetic engagement in everything that I do is happening in real time, and I need to take active steps to find out what I care about. Um, and for me, it happened by accident, just by trying to get like birth records. But I do think it's a general thing that people should do. I hope this made sense. I've been gone for a minute. I am a member of the working class now, so I work my face off. So it's been kind of tricky for me making content. I'm back in the mix though to an extent. I think I hit a level, like I mentioned in the community tab. I think I hit the level of comfort where I'm able to make videos about things and hit record on things, especially if I'm not going to be streaming as much. Because there's a lot going on that I want to talk about. So this is me sort of popping that cherry to get back into the wild. But that's all I got for now. Hopefully that was clear. And I got some things on the line that I guess I'm excited about. There's just other videos that I'm ready to deploy that will deploy gradually. Maybe about horses and lollies on them. All right, I'll catch you soon.